Welcome to the Weekly Dose Podcast, your one-stop shop for the weekly news in incretin mimetic therapies, with your host, ManOnMounjaro, Dave Knapp. Welcome to On the Pen, the weekly dose for the week of Tuesday, March 26th, 2024. I'm Dave Knapp, ManOnMounjaro. That's why I'm here. You are on the pen. That's why you're here. Wegovy, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, Mounjaro, Zepbound, Viking Tide. That's why you're here. And we're going to talk all about Viking Tide today because we're frankly sick of talking about the shortages in Zepbound and Mounjaro. Although we are creating a movement using hashtag release the vials on all the socials so that Eli Lilly knows that we're aware that the vials were approved by the FDA last year for the presentation of Mounjaro and single dose vials. And we would like to see them on the market here to help alleviate the supplies that are so strained at the moment. I hope that you're doing well. We're going to get into it here. We're going to talk about Viking Tide because there's exciting news. If you're not familiar with Viking Tide is actually called VK2735. And we've talked about on the YouTube channel over at OnThePen with ManOnMounjaro, we've talked about VK2735 in the form of the weekly injectable. Now it is a GIP, GLP-1 dual receptor agonist. And you may remember GLP and GIP-1 from such medicines as Mounjaro, which is tirzepatide, a 5-to-1 GIP to GLP-1 ratio weekly injectable. Now, to refresh you on Viking Tide, the injectable, after 1 month on the Viking Tide pen, users saw a 7.8% weight loss after 1 month. And after 13 weeks, that jumped up to 14% after 13 weeks. So amazing news from the injectable version. But today we got a top line from phase 1. So we got a top line data readout from phase 1 after 28 days on the Viking Tide oral, daily oral. Users saw a 5.3% reduction in weight loss after just 28 days on this GLP-1 GIP receptor agonist pill, which is super exciting. That was only 3.3% when they adjusted for placebo. So there was actually a really high response to this placebo group. But this was a group of people with obesity or overweight. This was not a diabetic study at this point. So very interesting. Because that is a big number. Contrast that to where tirzepatide, the injectable version of tirzepatide, was after 28 days in clinical trials, where the adjusted for placebo number was 5.8%. So the 3.3 adjusted for placebo versus 5.8 on tirzepatide. And the exciting thing is that the tolerability of this oral, this daily oral, was potentially positioning Viking Tide, the oral medication, to be a first-in-class medication when it comes to side effects. The side effect profile was extremely well tolerated. So getting into the numbers a little bit, 10, 20, and 40 milligrams were the doses that were given in this 28-day trial. And there was a dose-dependent body reduction observed in that 28 days of, like I said, 5.3%. And that's amazing, an amazing number in an oral, because what they said was going all the way up to 40 milligrams because it was so well tolerated in the phase 2 trials that they will move to here soon. They will be trying even higher doses. In fact, one of the interesting things that was discussed on this call was a question from a member who said, does this even have a member, I should say, of one of the investment houses? The question was, is the titration period even necessary? Could it be a higher milligram dosage for the titration period? And so they're going to be playing around with that quite a bit. It's amazing because up to 57% of the subjects achieved greater than 5% weight loss in 30 and 28 days versus 0% on the placebo that achieved that kind of weight loss. So amazing. And it suggests the potential for further weight loss with obviously longer treatment and higher doses. So that will be what we see out of the phase 2 trial, which is planned to start later this year, with a focus on both of those things, both higher doses and longer treatment. And amazingly, like I said earlier, the safety and tolerability profile, especially from the GI side of things, was first in class compared to other predecessor medications. So this is amazing news, because when we talk about the supply chain, because that's what we cannot get away from in the GLP-1 conversation right now, there's major shortages in all the GLP-1 and GIP medications that are out there. They're nearly impossible to find at this point compared to even just a few months ago. And when we talk about a pill that could hit this level of weight reduction and the ease with which a pill can be mass produced, we're talking about a major disruptor in the GLP-1 market. Now, this is years away. So your phase 2 trials, which are going to probably take a year to complete, and then your phase 3 trials, which usually last longer than a year, and then your period of submitting it to the FDA, we're talking about maybe 4 years before we would see Viking Tide hit the market. But wow, what an option that'll be at a time where there's going to be semaglutide on the market, CagriSema on the market, there will be retatrutide on the market, there will be tirzepatide, there will be high-dose semaglutide, high-dose tirzepatide by that time. To bring this on the market in a very busy field of contenders will be absolutely a disruptor, and very exciting for the prospects of the accessibility of these medications long term. And the great thing about it at that point is we will see expanded labeling and expanded indications for the existing medications that will allow more of our friends who are on Medicare accessibility to these medications. So the future is really, really, really exciting in these medications. And even though we're struggling through some of those major issues that we have with supply constraints now, it is very exciting to think about the future, and Viking Tide is going to be one of those that we're going to want to watch. A couple other ones that I wanted to bring to your attention that we've talked about on the channel too. Meriti. Meriti would be Amgen's molecule that is delivered via a monoclonal antibody. There's a pill version of that as well. That is a GLP-1 and GIP. That is a GLP-1 receptor agonist combined with a GIP blocker, receptor blocker, or antagonist. So that's interesting. One, I've got videos on that on the YouTube channel. You see a tremendous amount of weight loss, and the interesting novel approach that they have there is you're talking about a once monthly, or perhaps something that could be stretched out to a once quarterly, once every 6 months. It'll be very interesting to see where that one goes. That is again called Meriti, and that's from Amgen, and that is short of phase 2 trials yet too. Phase 2 trials set to start yet this year. So you're talking about another 4 years at least for that one to hit the market as well. But those are the two that probably excite me the most that are in the pipeline. Of course, the next one from a company that is not Eli Lilly or Novo Nordisk to hit the market will likely be survodutide, and we'll likely see survodutide in the next 2 years hit the market. So very interesting and exciting times in the world of GLP-1 medications. But I wanted to bring you this week an exciting update on Viking Tide, the oral version, because the pill forms of these medications are nothing to sleep on. This is an exciting thing when we talk about accessibility. Hopefully, when we talk about cost, hopefully some driving down of the cost of these medications. And for people who naysay, Zepbound was released at about $200 below what the average cost of Wegovy was. So they are seeing that competition is driving down the cost of these medications. So the future is very bright in the world of obesity treatment. I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for being in the best part of what I do at OnThePen, the weekly dose. Make sure that you jump over, check out our Instagram, check out our TikTok, check out the YouTube channel, especially. That's where the magic happens. Every Thursday night, we have a show called OnThePen Live with a special guest. It's just a great sense of community over there. So we would love to have you every Thursday night, 9 p.m. on YouTube. Until next week, I can't wait to see you on the pen.